Hey guys, welcome back to another video. As you can see today, I am all snuggled up and cozy because it is winter. It's November. It's very cold outside, and it's very cold as shit in my room right now. When I left for work today in the morning, I forgot to turn on my AC, so I came back home and it was freezing as shit in here. So I have it on now. It's all good. It's still fucking cold as shit, but that's why if you're all wondering why I look kind of like DB Cooper. Well, it's because I gotta keep warm. I gotta stay warm. But but that's besides the point. Um, for today's video, we're gonna do something different. We're still experimenting with things. Um, for today, I just wanted to like talk to you guys. Just go on a little rant. That's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna be a rant YouTube channel. I'm just gonna be annoying and just talk. But what I wanted to talk about was something that I just find interesting. Something that I like to look into and predict. Because being a big old film nerd like myself, I've always had a keen interest in like the Hollywood industry. Like the behind the scenes of movie making, but specifically the inner workings of like the suits. The studios, what they decide, what do they want to make, who gets what to make what, and like how movies are gone, not just from like the behind the scenes, like script writing and filming, but to like the actual conception and how projects are like greenlit and propose and stuff like that. So I love like the industry stuff. I'm very keen on like and you can call me an industry insider. Okay, that's what I am. That's what I like to do. So yeah. So just to simplify things, every in terms of like film history, especially here in the U.S., here in Hollywood, each decade in film is defined by like a genre or just like a trend that becomes really popular, and all the studios, the big and small ones, like the big five studios, right? It's Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal, Paramount, and Sony, right? They own Columbia Pictures. It used to be the big six with Fox, 20th Century Fox, but Disney bought them out, by like 2019, I want to say. And really, it's gonna be the big four because I think Warner Brothers is like going bankrupt, and they're also like looking into, biddings. I think Netflix or Paramount are gonna buy them. But anyway, besides the point, again, every decade, the big five or the smaller studios, like A24 or Neon or Searchlight, I think that's like the remnants of Fox. They all want to make a movie either based on this genre or this trend that's just really popular. And just for like the 2020s, you might be thinking to yourself, what is the popular trend? What is the genre that's really defining this decade? Because we're already like more than halfway through the decade, right? Like 2025, it's basically almost 2026. We're closer to the year 2030 than we are to the year 2020. Okay, so the decade is almost over. And so I feel like it's pretty safe to say, what the defining trend of this decade is in Hollywood. And for some people, it may not seem that obvious, but once I tell you, you're gonna, it's gonna click. And that trend is video game adaptations. You can't movies based on video games is the big thing this decade. The 2020s. That's going to define this era in terms of film history is video game adaptations. Every studio wants to make a movie or based on a video game, a franchise or a single game. We've seen that plenty of times, right? We've had like the Sonic movies by Paramount. Those are all three of them are big, right? That's gonna be like a whole franchise, right? They got like a show on Paramount Plus on the Red Dude that's popular, and there's like a fourth movie coming out. So Sonic is big. We've had Five Nights at Freddy's. I think that's made by like Universal. That's also pretty big, right? That's getting another movie coming out this year in like a month or less. So and we also got like the Mario movie. We got there was like a Mortal Kombat movie. I think that's also getting a sequel. Should be coming out next year, I think. And there's been like the Uncharted movie, but the one with Tom Holland that was like really bad. that was it was basically just like an Indiana Jones ripoff, which I mean the games could be, but I like Uncharted. I played the games back when I did have a PlayStation. It was fun, but the movie was terrible though. It was also like there was like the Resident Evil reboot. I'm not talking about like the classic old 2000s or early 2010s Resident Evil movie. I mean there was like a reboot that starred a bunch of nobodies, and it was bad. It was so bad that I think they're gonna reboot it again. So there's like another Resident Evil movie, like a second reboot, because this one was really bad. I think it was called like Welcome to Raccoon City. It was horrible movie. There's also Borderlands, which is just also horrible. That was just like a Guardian. They tried so hard to be like Guardians of the Galaxy, and it just. I think the big problem with the Borderlands movie was the fact that most of the main cast were like old middle aged people, and these were not the type of people to play these characters. Okay, that was terrible. So there was the Uncharted, Borderlands. I'm sure I'm missing some, but like I said, that's the big thing, video game adaptation, right? The Minecraft movie, that's what I was saying. The Minecraft movie came out, I think it might be the highest grossing movie of this year, and it was a big piece of shit. Okay, but I'm saying that's the thing, There's, like I said, there's the Mario movie that's getting a sequel, and it really is expanded. The video game adaptations is the big thing in Hollywood right now. We're getting even more in the future, right? There's gonna be like I think there's gonna be like a Death Stranding movie. There's gonna be like an Elden Ring movie. There's gonna be, I think Markiplier is making some bullshit on some indie game that I've never heard of. But hey, it might just be the next big thing. I'm telling you, that's the thing is, and there's so many, not even just the movies, but even like TV shows, right? Because shows usually also represent the area, right? Shows and movies always kind of the same in my eyes, and we've definitely seen that in shows, right? There was the Halo show on Paramount Plus, which was a big piece of shit. There was the Resident Evil show on Netflix, which was a big piece of shit. There was The Last of Us on HBO, which, I mean, it wasn't that bad. I personally didn't really like it, but it's whatever. Fallout, though, that was the silver lining, really. I think out of anything, it was definitely the best one. On Amazon, I didn't like it as much when I first saw it, but now I rewatched it not that long ago, and it's amazing. So, oh, no, it was Arcane on Netflix, so animated also. That was also really good. So I do think, because right back then in the 2010s, there was the idea of the video game curse, right? Any movie or show based on a game, which is gonna suck, because most of the time people who are making these movies on the games never even play the game, nor did they even care to play the games. And we see that the decade before. We had that one Assassin's Creed movie in the 2010s with like Michael Fassbender, which I think might be canon to the games. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe the Assassin's Creed lore masters out there can, fact check me on that. But that was a big piece of shit. And there was the Detective Pikachu movie, which, I mean, I do think it's kind of odd that they decided to make a movie based on Pokemon, but instead of just making like just a regular, like just that, not even like a that specific game, but just make a movie about the kid going out and throwing the fucking balls and catching the rat and making it fight the fucking pig. But they said they chose like this obscure like DS game about like a talking Pikachu. It's really odd. And that movie didn't do so good, which is why there hasn't been a sequel, right? You think Pokemon, like one of the biggest franchises in the world of anything, really, right? Like everyone knows Pokemon, everyone likes Pokemon, and you think a movie based on it would do like a big success, but it wasn't, because they chose fucking Detective Pikachu out of all things. So it's really odd, But still, regardless, that came out mildly successful, right? The fucking Angry Birds movies, those came out last decade also, and usually the decade previous is where we see the establishing of the trend before the decade to come, where it really pops off. So last decade we had plenty of films based on video games, and 2020 is really where it popped off. I listed a bunch of future movies, but also a lot more shows based on games that are coming out as well. There's gonna be, I think Netflix is gonna give another Assassin's Creed show. There's gonna be like a Far Cry, which I think they might have actually announced that not even that long before this video was recording. I know Amazon is they're basically carrying the thing, right? They're making like a Tomb Raider show, and they're making like a God of War one, because hey, Fallout did great. Fallout was great in my opinion. So I see no reason to doubt Amazon and their unknowingly wisdom that comes to making these type of things. So the 2020s, if we were to be defined by a single trend or genre, which I guess isn't really a genre, right? Video games are very wide genre, but if we were to be defined by a single trend for this decade, it's video game adaptations, right? Video game, everyone wants to make a movie or a show based on a video game. And it makes sense, because a lot of these trends are usually set forward by the generation that is really to come, right? Like a lot of Gen Z people, our generation, grew up playing video games. That was really the big thing when they were kids. So it makes sense that the people who grew up playing these games, they grow up and they get into the film industry. They want to make movies. They want to make a movie based on their favorite game growing up. So it makes sense. And not only that, but the video game industry is way bigger than the film industry, right? Like games just make way more money than movies ever can, right? Like GTA 5, I think grosses, like GTA Online grosses a higher avenue than like most of Hollywood put together in like the last 5 years. Just GTA Online, 1 year of GTA Online makes more money than like Hollywood does in the last 5 years. So I don't know how accurate that is. I might just be lying to you. My sources that I made it the fuck up, but I'm just saying is that's way more profitable, And so it makes sense that they want to tap into this big market, especially since video games are so like popular now, right? Like everyone plays video games, all right? Even like if you look at like stuff from like the 2000s or from like the 90s, video games will see exclusively as like a nerdy thing, like only the nerds with big glasses and the fucking braces play video games and they get bullied. But nowadays, everyone plays it. The nerd still plays it, and the cool bully kid who's like the high school football captain, he plays video games. He probably plays Call of Duty and FIFA. So it's something that obviously makes sense because it's very accessible to everyone, right? Everyone plays games, even if it is just simply like fucking mobile games, like fucking Candy Crush or what's it called, like the Stardew Valley. The so-called gamer girls when you play Stardew Valley. Everyone plays games, so it makes sense that this industry is tapped into it. And again, long history. Stuff has been made. The Resident Evil has been turned to movies way since the 2000s, right? Sonic has had a fucking cartoons based on him since like the 90s. So it makes sense that it does make sense. It makes sense why video games is the big thing this decade. And it obviously not going to come to an end. Even if this decade is defined by it, it'll still keep going. It's just that I feel like this 2020s is where it peaked. Which is kind of funny saying they peaked this day, considering like most movies that came out, in my opinion, were kind of butt cheeks. The Minecraft movie was probably one of the most horrendous things I've ever seen in a film. Like, genuinely embarrassing. Whoever made that, genuinely embarrassing. I've never seen such a bigger piece of horseshit in my life. But it was successful. Okay, the fucking chicken jockey, the flint and steel. People love that shit. And what does one asshole who's very pretentious care when compared to the millions of mindless fools who go to the cinema just to point and laugh at funny things? That's where the real money is at. Maybe I'm just being a little too harsh, okay? Honestly, in terms of like video game, movies based on video games, especially in recent years, I actually really liked Sonic 3. I think that one was really fun. I mean, it was still stupid in a lot of points. I feel like the dialogue is very like millennial coded. Like millennials talk. It's just a lot of like that. But I don't know how accurate it is to the Sonic like lore or games. I've never really played Sonic, so for me, just watching the Sonic movies, I mean, the blue rat runs fast and he like beats up the evil rat. So it was fun. It was a fun movie. Jim Carrey does great. I can't say a lot about Five Nights at Freddy's. I've personally never been into Five Nights at Freddy's. I know it's just like Five Nights at Freddy's. People always talk about like the lore and how like insane it is, but the lore isn't cool. It's just stupid. Where do we even like there? If you need to watch a YouTube video that's like fucking 10 hours long, explain the FNAF lore, it doesn't mean the lore is good. That means the lore is awful. If you have to take that long to fucking explain it, like why is the Five Nights at Freddy's lore so crazy when it's simply like the simple concept is just scary robots jump scaring you, doing the fucking face, the fucking face, and then Markiplier is going like, is that the boy of '87? I'm trashing a lot on Markiplier. I'm sorry. I like Markiplier, but he has a dedicated fan base and it's kind of cringe, okay? But like again, Five Nights at Freddy's, I never personally got into it. I've always found it cringe the same way some people see Has Been Hotel or I don't know, fucking I don't know what's Harry Potter fans, Potterheads. That's the same way I see FNAF fans. I'm sorry, I just can never take a franchise that's whole games is just looking at a fucking screen and then occasionally the fucking fat bear or the fucking hot chicken will just pop off from the screen and just fucking scream at your face. I'm sorry, I don't consider that as peak content, okay? And the movies, I mean, I think the animatronics are cool. The fact that they made it out of practical effects, really impressive because they look so much like the games also. So that's really impressive. I really do got to give credit where credit is due. But everything else is just the most basic, by the numbers, horror cliches and tropes that you will ever see. I just don't understand Five Nights at Freddy's. Okay, I mean, if you're like a furry, I understand it, right? The chicken is hot. You want to fuck the chicken. That's your thing, man. You go ahead. But some people they just take that shit way too serious. Okay, Five Nights at Freddy's is not cool, or the lore isn't amazing. The lore is just stupid. The lore is just too complicated because the guy making it didn't give a rat's ass about lore, so he just kind of made the shit up as long as he went, and of course it was gonna get convoluted. So, and here we are. Fucking Titan is like 20 books trying to explain the lore, and even still doesn't do a good job at it. So, that's my little rant about that. But yeah, again, a lot of franchises I like, Uncharted, Borderlands, Assassin's Creed, Halo, Resident Evil, they've all been done dirty. No, okay, all those shits were awful for a lot of reasons. I can't even begin. Casting Tom Holland as Nathan Drake was just a horrible idea from the start. Okay, fucking Resident Evil. Resident Evil in concept. I think would do great in film. I just don't understand why the filmmakers just can't comprehend. Like, I don't know what's so hard to understand. It's just a simple fucking zombie monster story. I don't know why they always just can't just make it work. Just make it work and work. Just fucking make it work. I don't understand why it's so difficult. But besides, the Mario movie, just a basic kids movie, basic animated kids movie. I really do despise that Illumination is making these movies. I feel like, well, I mean, it's obviously Pixar would do a way better job than Illumination ever could, right? DreamWorks. I feel like the Mario movie should have been made by DreamWorks. I feel like they would have done a way better job at it. Because Illumination, and I think the reason why Nintendo picked Illumination is because Illumination's whole motto is that they make movies by the numbers. They have a formula and they never derive or change from it. Like if you've seen Despicable Me, the fucking what's that shit called with like the animals with like the Seth MacFarlane voices like a mouse that sings for like Frank Sinatra. Fuck, what was that shit called? Sing? I think it's just called Sing. See, it's just the most basic and bland thing ever. And I think that's why Nintendo picked Illumination because they wanted the most safe and the most bland choices for Mario ever. And that is the best way to describe the Mario movie, in my humble asshole opinion. It's just bland. It doesn't try to do anything different. And I feel like if DreamWorks or even definitely Pixar, if they took it, they would have done something more spectacular. Because DreamWorks and Pixar, they take risks. They do stuff that may not be seen as okay, right? I mean, Pixar, they are because they made one of the first ever major 3D fully computer animated movies like Toy Story. That was a huge risk back then, and they still take risks. I mean, Pixar, you could say they kind of fall off, which I mean they kind of have, but I still think they have the magic in them. And I'm just ashamed that Mario, which I have played Mario games, I do love Mario. I think it's an amazing franchise. It is a shame that it's been decided that Illumination, out of all companies, has picked it. But hey, Illumination has publicly denounced AI, so maybe they're not that evil after all. But anyway, 2020s is video games. Now, what about the last decade? What about the 2010s? Well, that one should be obvious, right? It's superheroes, right? 2010s was defined by superheroes. Fucking there was the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Fucking Iron Man, Captain America, and the Avengers, and the Guardians of the Galaxy, fucking being pumped out every year. Marvel was releasing like 4 movies, and that's just the Marvel Cinematic Universe ones, right? When Fox was around, they were still pumping out their X-Men movies. With the Hugh Jackman Wolverine and the fucking X-Men people. They were doing all that, and fucking Warner Brothers, they tried really hard with DC and they failed miserably with it. DC failed so hard at making, Warner Brothers failed so hard at making DC movies. They had to retry again this year with Superman. But still, like early in that one, they pumped out movies. They were pumping shit out. Even Sony tried getting in on it, right? They had the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, and those fucking sucked and failed. And which, I mean, I guess that's like a controversial opinion. People really like Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Andrew Garfield is a great Spider-Man, but we gotta talk. We're talking about the movies, not Andrew Garfield. Andrew Garfield is a great actor, and I do think he was a great Spider-Man. He could be even a better Spider-Man than Tom Holland. I'm just saying, but like the actual movies of the Amazing Spider-Man movies were just terrible. Okay, we just gotta be honest with ourselves, gang. Okay, we cannot let nostalgia guide our opinions based on something that we watched as kids and we had fond memories because it was a childlike wonder when we saw it and be like, oh, that movie was good. Like, yeah, it wasn't the best, but it's better than today's. No, it's not. Okay, because Andrew Garfield might be a better Spider-Man than Tom Holland, but Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies are way better than fucking Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, right? Spider-Man Homecoming is a way better movie than both Amazing Spider-Mans could ever be. Way leagues better, okay? But anyway, yeah. The superhero craze of the 2010s was crazy. It wasn't just movies, but even shows, right? Like Netflix was pumping out those like Daredevil and Punisher, and the CW, right? They had to deal with DC. They were pumping out like the Green Arrow and the Flash and Supergirl, and I don't know, was Batwoman? I think it was like a Batwoman thing. I'm pretty sure. And again, even cartoons. There's basically plenty of like Marvel and DC cartoons coming out in the 2010s. So it was really 2010s was the superhero genre, right? And again, I'm not saying that the genre died. Like in 2020, we're still seeing plenty of superhero movies, right? Marvel is still fucking assembly line fucking pumping out them bitches every year, right? And DC, like I said, they're trying again with making movies that are better, which I think they're succeeding. Superman was way better than Man of Steel. Man of Steel is fucking nothing compared to Superman 2025 by James Gunn, and Gunn we trust. So, Sony again, they tried. Like, I don't think the amount of superhero movies coming out this decade is nearly as bad as last decade, right? You look at years like in 2018, right? We had like there was the Avengers movie, Infinity War, right? There was the Black Panther movie. There was that one Ant-Man movie with the fucking bee chick or Wasp. I think it was Wasp. and that was the Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. But there was also the Venom movie that came out this year. So we had like 4 Marvel movies, and there was also the X-Men one with Apocalypse. There was like 5 Marvel movies, and not only that, but there was, I'm pretty sure Aquaman came out that year. So there was like fucking 6 superhero movies coming out last year. We had that's basically a new movie, superhero movie every fucking like 2 months. That's a lot. Okay, this year, I mean, we've had like what, Captain America, and there was Superman, maybe some like, what was that one? That was like the evil Avenger. I think it was called like Thunderbolts. I'm pretty sure it was called, and it was Fantastic Four. 4 movies, not nearly as much as the last times, So 2010s was superheroes. You could not go anywhere. And again, I'm not saying superheroes died. It's still very much around. They're still popular. They're still making money. But I think they really peaked in 2010s, right? Like Endgame was really like where Marvel really peaked. So have they reached the same levels? Probably not. I think the closest they got to was like No Way Home, but that was in like 21. So who knows? But superhero movies aren't going anywhere. But they peaked in 2010 in the 2010s. So that was that genre. And again, the decade before sets up the decade to come. So superhero movies were coming out in the 2000s. Then we had the early Fox X-Men movies, right? We had the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. The Dark Knight trilogy was coming out that time. I feel like the whole superhero craze that in the 2010s started in like 2008, right? Because in 2008, both the Dark Knight and the first Iron Man movie came out, and those two were huge. Those two were actually really good, right? The Dark Knight is still considered by a lot and by me to be the best superhero movie ever. So 2008 is really where it kicked off, right? But even before then, there was still plenty coming out, right? It's not like the superhero just came out of fucking nowhere and just appeared, right? But since we brought up the 2000s, what was the 2000s defining genre? And I'm sure from my Gen Z viewers, we were all babies in 2000, so we definitely don't remember that much. But seeing the media, like YouTube videos of that time, especially a lot of like the movies that were coming out, the 2000s, and this again might be surprising, but again, if you really think about it, it isn't. The defining genre of the 2000s was zombie movies. Okay, like zombie movies were fucking everywhere in the 2000s. Okay, and I think it really started with like 28 Days Later. That came out like I was saying 2003, and the sequel 28 weeks later came out like in 2007. I think that's what really started it because that movie was great. That movie was amazing, arguably one of the best zombie movies ever, and it did really good. It was really good in the theaters. So it just pumped out a bunch of other zombie movies, right? The Resident Evil movies, they started coming out in the 2000s, and they continue until like the mid 2010s. And they're still fucking making movies. Like I said, there was the reboot last year, and now they're making another one. So zombies aren't going anywhere. But 2000s, it was zombies. Okay, there was the Dawn of the Dead remake. There was the fucking, I guess the Dawn of the Dead remake, and there was the Shaun of the Dead. The comedy Zombieland. I think that was really popular, right? So this whole decade, George Romero, the guy who like considered the godfather of zombies, right? He made Night of the Living Dead, often regarded as not the first. Like he didn't create zombies, but definitely like pioneered what we consider as a zombie. Like the ideas of the slow walking, brain eating, fucking rotting corpse came from Night of the Living Dead, right? I know zombie as a whole is like associated with like voodoo, but that's like a whole other thing. George Romero was still pumping out zombie movies in the 2000s. Okay, whether or not they were successful is regardless of the point, And that came out, right. We started getting like comedies, Zombieland, Shaun of the Dead were comedies. So we start off with that's usually how it goes, right? We get the serious dramas, and then we kind of get like too much of it, and that's when we start getting the comedies. Like it's superhero movies. The movies were very serious. Like if you watch Iron Man, that movie took itself really serious. But then we go a little bit more in the decade, and superhero movies don't really take themselves serious anymore. Like the Superman, basically a comedy at that point, right? Like very comic booky, which is a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, right? Like I think Shaun of the Dead is way better than the Dawn of the Dead remake in 2004. So there's that, and they both came out the same year, 2004, also. So fun fact. But I think the zombie genre really like peaked was in 2013 because in that year was World War Z, which is like the highest grossing zombie movie ever. World War Z was like a fucking phenomenon when it came out, right? Like nobody could stop talking about it. South Park made like a whole episode about World War Z. That's how fucking popular it was, right? Again, regardless of the actual quality, it was successful. But I feel like after World War Z, people just kind of realized like, what else can we do with zombies, right? Like everything you could tell was basically already, you told them, right? Like you can only do so much with zombies realistically without just retrending the same things or just becoming a parody. But while World War Z may be the catalyst, I personally consider the real killer for zombies, because zombie movies still got made, but like what really killed the momentum was Warm Bodies. I don't know if anyone watched Warm Bodies. I feel like a lot of people forget this movie exists. I personally Like I remember it exists because it really is weird. The whole movie, Warm Bodies, it stars Nicholas Hoult, a young Nicholas Hoult before he became, fucking Lex Luthor. He's a zombie, and it's a zombie who's like sentient, like he can talk. It has thoughts. It isn't like just a walking corpse. It's basically just a human that cannibal. It's a zombie that falls in love with like a non-zombie human girl. It's a romance, okay? It's really fucking weird, okay? Like a zombie falling in love with a human. This is how I was talking about parody. The movie took itself completely serious, by the way. This isn't like a comedy. It's a completely serious drama. And I feel like we got to a point where we start making movies where it's a love story between a zombie and a person. That's like, we really got to put this on, like, we got to put on break. Okay, like, what are we doing here? What are we making? Okay, like, this is getting ridiculous. Warm Bodies was a fucking ridiculous fucking movie. And it still stuck out to me because how weird it was, Just, honestly, if I think Warm Bodies deserves a remake. Honestly, I think I should remake Warm Zombies. Okay, I'll go to the fucking studio. I don't know what studio made it. I could have been Sony. I don't know. I'll walk up to the studio and I'm gonna present to them a idea to remake Warm Bodies. I keep saying Warm Zombies. It's called Warm Bodies, but it's basically the whole movie, right? The human girl, instead of the zombie falling in love with the human, I'll make it the human falls in love with the zombie, and they keep it around because they're in love with it. And the zombies in this my remake aren't like zombies. They're not like corpses that just brought back from the dead and start eating people. They're more like just people who are infected with the virus, and they're still human. They're still deep in there, but it's just they have the unurged. It's like a vampire, Like vampires are basically human. They just have the unnerving need to like suck blood. So a zombie is basically a person. They just have an unwavering need to eat human flesh. And instead of making a straight couple, because I feel that's where the Warm Bodies fail, was the fact that they made it a straight romance. Okay, straight people do not fuck with like weird romance concepts like fucking zombies falling in love with a human person, right? That's something gay people fuck with. Okay, there's a reason why whenever like stuff like the weird romance stories like furries and Has Been Hotel involves a lot of gay people, because only gay people fuck with weird shit like that. Okay, they're the only ones strong enough to deal with that. And I feel like a concept of a zombie falling in love with a girl, human person. It's not, it has to be a girl, it could be a guy also, but like a zombie falling with a person is something that only gay people fuck with, and therefore I think it's right to make it a gay couple. I thought make it a lesbian couple. Okay, it's human girl falls in love with the girl zombie. Okay, we'll call it Warm Bodies. It'll be the same. It'll be two girls. It'll be a lesbian zombie romance. We won't take it too serious. It'll be like a light comedy. Like it's like a drama comedy is what it'll be. Okay, we'll release it around Valentine's Day in February. And it'll star the human girl will be played by Isabella Merced, and the zombie will be played by Lily Rose Depp, right? Because that bitch already looks like a zombie. And it's a lesbian drama, comedy drama, and I'm telling you, with that idea right there, fucking, it'll make $1 zombillion, okay? Fucking $1 zombillion, all right? That's my fucking idea. We'll remake Warm Bodies, we'll turn it into a comedy drama comedy, we'll make it gay, and it'll be a success. I'm telling you, 2025, 2026, I don't give a fuck what year it is, $1 zombillion. That's my idea right there. So, shout out to Warm Bodies. Really fucking weird movie. If anything, you should go watch it, because it is an odd movie. Watch it with your significant other. But anyway, back to the thing before I start talking about Warm Bodies. Zombies, peak 2000s, early 2010s, right? Again, TV shows, we had plenty. There wasn't really zombie shows, but there were shows that had like episodes about zombies. Like shows that weren't even zombie shows. They just had episodes of zombies in it. You know the show House with the doctor who's like autistic? That's a medical drama about a doctor dealing with patient stuff. That had an episode about a zombie outbreak. Okay, Community, a comedy series about a bunch of like middle-aged people going to community college, had a zombie episode. Why the fuck did that show like that have a zombie episode? Because that was just the trend. Because that was popular. Okay, and like I said, World War Z maybe would have been the killer to zombie genres, but I think really The Walking Dead was really what kind of killed it, right? Because The Walking Dead, well, I think it came out like in 2010, but like Walking Dead has been in the works since like 2000, right? The show, like The Walking Dead was originally going to air on HBO, but HBO passed on it because they thought the zombie fatigue was really setting in by that point. So AMC kind of picked it up instead. But The Walking Dead, like when I said World War Z kind of killed it because people just didn't have any ideas for zombies. The Walking Dead was basically just like a zombie encyclopedia of ideas. They deal with zombies, they deal with survivors. The Walking Dead is anything you could do with zombies was done in The Walking Dead. So there was really no point making anything else, And The Walking Dead was, again, huge popular. I own all the comics based on The Walking Dead. I love that show. Even if the later seasons do kind of suck. I mean, The Walking Dead aired in 2010. I don't think it ended until like 2021. That shit ran for a whole decade, And they're still going. There was like spin-off, right? There's like a show about like Darrow and I think there's like a show about fucking Maggie and Negan. I didn't watch any of them because I'm honestly those sound like fucking like a show about Maggie and Negan. Like really, whose idea was that? Like I guess Daryl's a cool character, but like again, I mean, do we really need more Walking Dead? I feel like we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here, you know. But again, side tangent aside, 2000s zombies, 2010s superheroes. Oh, and I guess the decade before in the 90s, in my opinion, what started the zombie trends of the 2000s was the movie Scooby Doo and Zombie Island. I'm not gonna elaborate. That's what started it all. Okay, end of story. But yeah, 2000 zombies, 2010 superheroes, 2020 is video games. Now, what about 2030s? The real reason we're all here is what do me, is that proper English? What do I consider to be the big trend that will happen in 2030s? Again, I don't think it's too early to say. We're almost close to the decade, right? I mean, it's almost 2026, so 2030 is almost around the corner. And in my humble opinion, in the hypothesis that I have made through my extensive research of topics, I do believe that the 2030s will be defined by, and stay with me here, anime and manga adaptations. I don't mean anime like manga turned to anime like Japanese. I mean American productions. Now, hear me out. Hear me out. The reason I think this is because we're already seeing the trends go in place, right? Animated movies like Demon Slayer, both of them were huge success. Even here in America, I think Demon Slayer movies are like two highest grossing animated movies of all time. Those were hugely successful, right? Fucking Chainsaw Man came out this year, huge success in this year. So, and anime has also become just really popular. I remember as a child in middle school, watching anime, you were considered a loser. Anime was exclusively a loser thing. That's where all the rejects watched. I never really got into anime, me personally. It's just something that I've just never really got into. I've had plenty of friends who tried to get me into it. I remember in high school, my homegirl, shout out to her. You're definitely watching this. I remember she made me watch this like zombie anime about like zombie girls. I forgot what it was called. Honestly, I think it was also just called Zombieland, like the movie. But I remember in class, she made me like watch the first episode. I think we were like finished our assignments, and she pulled it up on like some illegal website that probably gave our like computer a super virus. I remember watching it one episode, and then after school, she told me like, "Oh, I should watch the rest." I never did because I just didn't. I did not pique my interest. No fault to her. I just could not give a fuck about it. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know if you remember this, but I remember that. But anyway, anime just never really been my thing. I watch anime movies, Studio Ghibli. I saw the Chainsaw movie come out this year. I thought it was really amazing. But would I watch Chainsaw Man anime? I mean, maybe. I don't know. It's just I just feel like, and I'm too pretentious for anime. I feel like that's the thing, Like for me, my circle of pretentious film critics I have on Discord, anime is just not something we consider as high art, which I know for a lot of anime fans that will sound offensive, right? First off, what does high art mean? Is something that I feel like you kind of just have to know to really understand. I feel like I'll do a horrible job at explaining high art, but you know, if you know the type of movies I'm into, especially my friends, the type of movies I take you guys out to watch with me, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But anime has never really been something that I consider, or my circle has considered that. Maybe I'm just too, I don't know, just not in it. Maybe I was just born in the wrong generation. I'm sure. I know I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong. And I know there's amazing anime out there. I know there's amazing anime shows where it has amazing stories and themes. People always say Attack on Titan, and I know I'm probably just missing out because I'm stubborn. But it's just, I don't know. Like, do I want to watch an anime like Attack on Titan, or do I want to watch a show like Succession? To me, that's always the plan. Do I want to watch a cool anime, or do I want to watch the next Succession? And I always choose Succession because that's just a show that interests me more. Seeing rich people argue every episode is just what piques my interest. That's just what I love. I love seeing it. White Lotus, same thing. Rich people arguing in hotels. That is peak to me. And anime is just like Attack on Titan, or like what someone called like Jujutsu Kaisen, or fucking, I don't know, what's the other popular one? Demon Slayer. They just don't interest me. I don't know. I think it's just because anime is just too. I'm just too Western American minded to really understand Japanese comedy or style of writing. Every country is different in terms of the tones of how their movies make. I watch a lot of foreign film, but not really anime. I don't know. It's just hard to understand my thought process. I feel like, and it's not because my friends inner circle tells me not to watch them. It's just I just don't feel like it's something I would get into. And I haven't seen a couple anime. Like I've seen Death Note, and it was good, but I don't know. I just didn't get into it. I don't know. I'm just weird. Okay, I'm weird. I love Has Been Hotel, but I can't get into anime. I don't know. That just I'm too. I don't know what that makes me. I just take what you will with that. But again, regardless of my personal opinions, I do think anime and manga is the next big thing. Like I said, Demon Slayer was huge. Anime movies coming are huge. U.S. adaptations haven't been so successful, right? I feel like the video game curse might be broken, but the anime curse is still very much alive. I know this decade, I don't think there really has been that much. I know in the 2010s there was, there was the Alita Battle Angel, and there was that Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise. I did not know that was based on a manga, but it is. And of course, there was the Netflix Death Note, but we don't have to get into that. But those movies were successful. Alita Battle Angel and Edge of Tomorrow were successful. Not successful enough to actually kickstart the trend early, but successful enough that filmmakers see that and they'll put them in the back of their mind. Like I said, every generation when they grow up, they want to make movies based on the stuff they like. Well, where our generation grew up with video games, I feel like the next generation or like the next second part of Gen Z grew up watching anime. They grew up reading manga, so it makes sense that they grow up, they get into the film industry, and they want to make movies based on the anime and manga that they loved when they were young. So I feel like that is the next trend. Again, TV shows. If you get into shows, Netflix, One Piece is huge successful, right? The live action one, I really love that. Honestly, One Piece live action, Netflix, I may say one of the best shows of this decade. One of the best Netflix shows, original, because it was really fun. It made me want to watch One Piece, which I didn't because the shit's like 1,000 episodes. It made me want to read the manga instead, though, because I'd rather read 1,000 chapters than watch 1,000 episodes. I don't know. Reading is better than TV, so that's my excuse. But yeah, I think One Piece was hugely successful, and I feel like it definitely sets up ideas for future adaptations. I know Netflix is probably planning on making more live action anime shows. I think Amazon is making some. I don't know the names of it because I'm just not that familiar with anime. I do know that plenty of anime live action US adaptations are in development. I know there is the fucking Naruto. I know there's Attack on Titan. I think there might be a Demon Slayer one. Oh no, My Hero Academia. All those are down. That's like 100% in development. Okay, so expect to see that in the future in the 2030s. Oh, I forgot to mention is the video game one, but Legend of Zelda. I'm super looking forward to. I love Zelda, and I'm kind of glad they picked unknown actors instead of big names. I'm as much as I think Hunter Schafer would have made an amazing Zelda. I am glad that Link isn't being played by Tom Holland, and Zelda isn't being played by Zendaya. Okay, I'm glad it's no names instead. But anyway, yeah, man, anime manga adaptations I think are the next big thing. I feel like we're kind of seeing it now. We'll probably see more in like the late 2020s, like around 2028 or 2029. I feel like that's where we'll see it more. So I do think that's the next big thing. I think TV shows, again, we're going to get to that. Anime manga is like at an all-time high. Again, watching anime is no longer considered loser stuff. I feel like, especially a lot of young kids, like at my work, watch anime, and that's like the first shows. Like I tell them, what shows you watching? The first thing they bring was anime because that's what's popular, and that kind of makes me think of it. I was like, yeah, I guess I'm just an old man compared to these kids now, So I think that's the next big thing. I'm not saying superhero movies are gonna die. I feel like that's still gonna be a thing. Video game adaptations are not gonna die. That's still very much gonna be a thing. I mean, we're still getting zombie movies, right? 28 years later, came out this year, and that was a big success. So, what I'm saying is that like these movies get made for this decade, and then once the decade ends, these movies are not made anymore. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that there's certain decades where this genre type of movies peak. They reach their peak where we see so much, and we see the good ones and make so much money. But then every decade, they stop. They're still being around. They're still successful. They're not as successful as they used to be. So. 2000 zombies, 2010 superheroes, 2020s video games, 2030s is gonna be anime. And you just watch me, okay? I put my future grandkids' souls on this prediction, okay? If I'm wrong, God can strike me down with lightning, but that won't happen because I am right. I'm confident that I will be right. Well, what about the 2040s? Well, too early to say. Who knows what's be popular by that point? If up to me. I mean, we've already kind of adapted everything. I honestly don't know. Maybe we'll see like fucking AI become the next big thing in 2040. AI movies. I don't know. Hopefully not. I swear. I pray to Jesus that does not happen. But you just can't know. Too early. Way too early to say. But yeah, I think that's my predictions. I hope I did a good job explaining. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing me rant. There wasn't a whole lot of editing here. I think it's like my earlier videos where I kind of just talked and maybe put some shit on the screen. But I want, you guys comment down below if you agree. Do you think I know I'm right. I know I'm right. I mean, it's hard to deny, you know. But do you agree that video games are big now? Do you agree that anime and manga are going to be the next big thing in the 2030s? If I'm wrong, I'll give $5 to every person who comments. I'll give you guys $5 if the year 2030, if we're in the year 2030 and not a single anime and manga movie have come out. I'll pay every single person who comments $5 if I'm wrong, but I won't because I know I'm right. And I pay attention to the industry. I'm a nerd like that. I just stuff that I find interesting, and I'm confident to say that's what's going to be the trend. So I hope you all learned something today. I hope you found this entertaining, and I I hope I want to say happy Thanksgiving, but honestly, this video could come out after Thanksgiving, so I don't want to jinx myself. But I'll just say a happy holidays, and I hope all of you wonderful people have an amazing rest of your day. Bye.
Our love story could be kinda gory, far from boring. We'd meet at a post-apocalypse. Yeah, I'd be slowly walking in a group stalking you. You'd be the only man alive that I could not resist. Then all of your friends, they'd try to kill us, but only because they'd be jealous that our love is deeper than Edward and Bella's. Oh, if I were a zombie, I'd never eat your brain. I just want your heart, yeah, I don't want your heart, I just want your heart, yeah. Oh, if I were a zombie, I'd never eat your brain. I just want your heart, yeah, I don't want your heart, I just want your heart, cause I want you. You'd be hiding in a second floor apartment, knocking all the stairs down to save your life from the undead. Double barrel shotgun, taking out the slow ones. Then you'd see the passion burning in my eye, and I'd keep my head. Then all of your friends, they'd try to kill us, but only because they'd be jealous that our love is deeper than Edward and Bella's. Oh, if I were a zombie, I'd never eat your brain. I just want your heart, yeah, I don't want your heart, I just want your heart, yeah. Oh, if I were a zombie, I'd never eat your brain. I just want your heart, yeah, I don't want your heart, I just want your heart, cause I want you. And I tried not to bite and infect you because I respect you too much. If that's why I'd wait until we got married. Oh, and our happiest days would be spent picking off all your friends, and they'd see a love this deep won't stay buried.